Is blindness a barrier? No.
Is deafness a barrier? No.
Are mobility, learning, cognitive disabilities, speech impairments and others, or even a combination of them, barriers? No way. Lack of accessibility is.
Welcome to Web Accessibility for All.
Follow the blind. This journey starts now.
Hey friends, how are you today? Welcome to this first episode of this podcast that we decided to call Web Accessibility for All. And to kick things off, we are going to start with a bang, because we are going to briefly analyze an element of every modern web UI. Cards. Yes, something so ubiquitous that someone told me once, hey, why the HTML specification doesn't have a card? Well, not including a card element makes sense. Let's think about it for a moment. A card needs to be flexible enough to hold any kind of elements inside. Beyond these considerations, in terms of design, a card could be easily styled using CSS, and of course, thanks to JavaScript, we can make them as interactive as small applications. But wait a second. Let's get back to basics. What is a card? We could define it this way.
Cards are self-contained information boxes with a distinct visual style that present content in a clear and concise way.
Well, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Now we can add a bit of more detail to this definition. First, cards are usually not alone, but they are presented in groups of several. Second, they have a parent component that contains them and also separates them from the rest of the UI elements. And third, their presentation logic could be separated and isolated from the rest of the application logic. Well, I think we have a fairly good idea about what cards are now. Now enough talk. Let's get our hands dirty.
The big three: Solar System, Google Chrome, ARIA.
So here I have my Chrome browser. It is showing a sample page. The page in question shows the three largest planets in our solar system. The page structure is pretty bare bones. A header with a navigation menu, a main area, and within it, a sequence of 3 cards side by side. Each card has a title, which is the name of the planet, an image of this planet, a brief informative text, and a button. So now we can navigate this page.
The big three: Solar System document.
By landmark.
Banner landmark navigation landmark list with 3 items home link.
Which includes the navigation menu. And the next one.
Main landmark the 3 biggest planets in our solar system heading level 1.
This is the main area of the document. Also we can navigate this page by headings by pressing the key H.
Main landmark the 3 biggest planets in our solar system heading level 1. Jupiter heading level 2.
Jupiter heading level 2.
Saturn heading level 2.
Saturn.
Uranus heading level 2.
Uranus. Also we can navigate this page by images, just pressing the G key.
Main landmark Jupiter graphic. Saturn graphic. Uranus graphic.
Also you can traverse all the links in the page.
Link home.
This is the first link in our navigation menu.
Planets link.
Planets link.
About link.
And about link. Okay, so now let's look at the code.
Visual Studio Code.
So here we are in our Visual Studio Code. The page code is here.
Less doc type HTML greater, less HTML lang equals n greater, less head greater. less meta char set equals UTF-8 / greater, less title greater the big 3, solar system less / title greater.
Now let me show you how it's structured. It will be simple, I promise. Here is the header.
Less header greater, less nav greater, less ul greater, less li greater less ref equals number greater home less / a greater less / li greater, less li greater less ref equals number greater planets less / a greater less / li greater, less li greater less ref equals number greater about less / a greater less / li greater, less / ul greater, less / nav greater, less / header greater.
Wow, it was a big chunk of code, but let's continue. Now we have the main header of this page, the header level 1.
Less main greater, less div greater, less h1 greater the 3 biggest planets in our solar system less / h1 greater.
And here we have the container. Yes, the container for our cards.
Less div class equals cards wrapper greater, less div class equals cards container greater.
Now let's look at the code for each card. It's very simple. Sure, in a professional project you're gonna need to use more elements, but for the sake of this show, let's keep it simple.
Less div class equals card greater, less h2 greater Jupiter less / h2 greater, less img, src equals https / photojournal.jpl.nasa.gov / target family / Jupiter, alt equals Jupiter, / greater, less p greater. The largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter is a gas giant. With a diameter of 143,000 kilometers. It has a swirling atmosphere and a great red spot, a giant anticyclonic storm that has been raging for centuries. Less / p greater, less button greater learn more less / button greater, less / div greater.
Okay, that was the chunk of code that represents a card in the UI. But now let's go back to the page for a second. I'm going to show you something. Let's try to navigate this page like many screen reader users do. And that is using the navigation cursor, the up and down keys.
Banner landmark navigation landmark list with 3 items link home, link planets, link about. Out of list main landmark heading level 1 the 3 biggest planets in our solar system, heading level 2 Jupiter, graphic Jupiter. The largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter is a gas giant with a diameter of 143,000 kilometers. It has a swirling atmosphere and a great red spot, a giant anticyclonic storm that has been raging for centuries. Button learn more. Heading level 2 Saturn. Graphic Saturn. Known for its iconic rings, Saturn is the second largest planet.
Here we have problems. How could we find how many cars are in this section? What if these cars have different content? But now let's try something else. Many people use the tab key to move around the page. So let's try that out.
Banner landmark navigation landmark list with 3 items link home. Planets link. About link. Main landmark learn more button. Learn more button. Learn more button.
There is no clue about what those buttons mean because there is no relationship between these buttons and what they are intended for. Those 3 buttons have this very same label. It is not simple to understand the content of this page. How can a screen reader user can relate all this information together and its relationship with the rest of the content? Well, friends, this is an exercise that we, screen reader users, have to do on our own. It's not easy and it's really frustrating. Okay, but There is a solution. What you were waiting for. ARIA to the rescue. But wait a moment. Do you know what ARIA is?
ARIA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications, a set of tags you add to web elements to make them understandable by assistive technologies used by people with disabilities.
Do you know when to use ARIA?
ARIA is for situations where HTML elements alone can't fully explain the content or functionality to assistive technologies.
And maybe the most important question, do you know the first rule of ARIA?
Do not use ARIA.
Yes, my friends, that's right. ARIA is not a silver bullet. ARIA is not a replacement for native HTML elements. ARIA is actually something that you carefully add to your native HTML elements. Okay, so since using ARIA involves a lot of personal judgment from the developer, here we have a good chance of making our cards more accessible. How? Let's go back to our editor and let's spice up our code with some ARIA to make this happen. Let's add a new attribute to the div that contains our cards. The role list actually provides semantic meaning to this div.
Less div class equals cards container role equals list greater.
Now let's change the div that serves as a card container to a semantic element, an article.
Less article class equals card greater.
To this article, let's add a role of list item.
Less article class equals card role equals list item greater.
Let's add something else, tab index.
Less article class equals card role equals list item tab index equals 0 greater.
Once we have done that, let's continue with the title of the card, which is a header.
Less article class, less h2 greater Jupiter less slash h2 greater.
Let's add it an ID property.
Less h2 ID equals card 1 greater Jupiter less slash h2 greater.
Okay, this ID will be used by the card container element, the article, to reference this card with this title to give it a label. And this is something that we can achieve using ARIA label by.
Less article role equals list item tab index equals 0 ARIA label at b equals card 1 greater.
Great. There is something else that I want to fix. That is a label of the button. It's absolutely nonsense to create a label so vague like that.
Less button greater. Learn more about Jupiter less slash button greater.
Sure, I know we can make a lot of more changes, but let's stick to cards, the topic of this episode. Let's go now to our browser to see what changed. Listen to the reader voice now.
The 3 biggest planets in our solar system heading level 1. List with 3 items heading level 2 Jupiter.
Did you notice that? The reader now recognizes 3 separated elements, but connected by a common title that defines all of them. But there's more. Do you remember when we tried to move around this page using the tab key? Let's see what happens now.
Main landmark. The 3 biggest planets in our solar system region. List with 3 items. Jupiter heading level 2 Jupiter graphic. The largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter, is a gas giant with a diameter of 143,000 kilometers. It has a swirling atmosphere and a great red.
Press tab key again.
Learn more about Jupiter button.
Tab key again.
Saturn heading level 2 Saturn graphic. Known for its iconic rings, Saturn is the 2nd largest planet. These rings are made up of billions of ice particles and dust. Saturn has a thick atmosphere and many moons.
And if I press tab key again.
Uranus heading level 2 Uranus graphic. The 3rd largest planet, Uranus is an ice giant with a unique tilt on its axis. It has a cold, blue atmosphere and several rings, although they are fainter than Saturn's. Learn more about Uranus.
There you have it. Even using the normal cursor, the navigation cursor, or moving with the tab key, we can find those elements, those cards. No matter if they are cards or they are displayed as cards. The thing is, I, a blind user, can understand that those three elements are actually separated from each other. This is the power of ARIA. We have a more accessible version of the page, with better organized information and easier to understand for people like me. Okay, my friends, we reached the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful for your work. Please don't forget, accessibility is not a privilege, it's a right, and we can all work together to make it happen. Thank you very much, my people. See you next week. Be safe.
Thanks for joining us today. Subscribe for a new challenge next week. And don't be shy. Leave us a review or ask your accessibility questions online. See you next week for another episode of Web Accessibility for All.